What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Shiv, and today we're going to be doing a little response to a Reddit post. Again, I thought I was done with this, making videos on this, but two people are constantly using the same flawed logic, and now they're introducing new things to try to justify what they're saying that just doesn't hold water. And then they're also trying to say a bunch of other stuff, which I don't get why they're saying it. I really don't. It makes no sense to me. But it is what it is. So let's get to this. I want to put this down. Now, one of the things they said is the rear gun does not hit at 5 DPS. Well, my exact words were it hits 5 per hit. And in all honesty, it's hitting anywhere from 5, 6, 7, sometimes higher, mostly in that 5, 6, 7 area, okay? The baseline is about 5. Almost every single shell is always going to hit 5. This is actually pretty accurate of almost every single 20mm in the game. The reality of it is that unless you're hitting in one of the super critical spots, the best way I can put it is the Citadel, taking World of Warships terminology, unless you're hitting the Citadel there, you're never going to get the full value of that shot. And the likelihood that you're going to be able to hit the Citadel for 1 second constant is non-existent in this game. Alright? Matter of fact, ground attack planes, if they did have said Citadel, even still, it would be almost impossible to hit it, unless you were using something like 30s or bigger. So yeah, that's something you got to factor in here. Those 20s, they're only hitting for this chunk damage. But where they really shine is the fact that you have multiple of them. They have a good rate of fire, so it adds up. Not to mention the fact that you're talking universal ammo, etc., etc., etc. Now, that is what I was getting to. As a matter of fact, if you watch the original video, you actually hear me say something like 555, 555, 555, 555, in terms of how this gun actually hits. That is what I was referring to. And in this video, you're going to see that. But I want to, put that on the side burner here real quick. They also brought up the fact that this gun has a 208 damage per second. And that's what it's listed in the client. And yes, it is actually listed as 208. Okay. Now we're going to test this. We're going to test this because apparently, according to them, this rear gun system is so OP that it's, it basically is an easy mode and that it needs to be changed. Okay, sure. Now, I'm be honest with you here. We do die to this F94D. Not for a lack of trying, mind you. Not for a lack of trying. We engage it for exactly 14 seconds. Okay? Now, if you do some simple math here, basically 2.6 seconds worth of fire from this rear gun should be enough to kill an F94D. F94D has a base health of 500. Now you add in improved covering and possibly the protection skill, and now you're talking about 530 something. Okay, so that comes out to 2.6, 2.7, give or take. So we'll say 3 seconds, right? 3 seconds should be all I need to do this. Well, let's find out what happens, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're well over 3 seconds now. Over 6. Now 9. Here we are approaching 12. And dead. So, why did we not actually kill it? I mean, we have 200 damage per second gun that's locking on completely. Why is it not killing it? Now, guys, I'm not trying to sound patronizing here, but the reality is that damage per second is just potential damage, all right? This is the highest value you could get with it. All right, you'll never exceed that. The reality is you're gonna hit much lower. All right, so let's do the math here. We dropped him down to about 70 health. All right, so if he's at 530, right, and we dropped him down to 70, simple math tells us that's 460. Matter of fact, let's bring this calculator over here. Boom. Okay, so 460 damage. Now let's divide that by 14. Because that's how long that engagement actually took, was 14 seconds. That is 32 damage, or 32.8, so 33 damage per second. That's a far cry away from 208. Now, this has been the basis of a few arguments that they've tried to put in there. And as I stated, no, it's not nearly that good. It's nowhere near as good as you guys are making it out to be, and it really isn't. Now, I'm not going to say that we wouldn't have killed him if he hadn't rocketed us, because God's honest truth, if he hadn't rocketed us, we owned him. We freaking owned him. But he did have rockets. And again, therein lies the thing. There are certain planes that can do what he did there, which is get on the tail. There are certain planes that excel at that. The F-94D can do it. The BVP-212 can do it. Any heavy fighter can do it. Anybody with 30s can do it. Like, he was using rapid fire 20, you know, that Gatling or the Vulcan 20 millimeter, and yeah, that was pretty good, but it wasn't going to basically do everything he needed. He actually had to hit with several of those rockets, and each one of those rockets hits for 400. Now, I want to give you guys an idea here. If you look at the BVP-212, those only hit for 150. All right? So if anything needs to get changed, it's the 94D's rockets. They need to come down to what the 212s is. But that's a whole other argument and completely outside the topic that we're on here. And I don't really want to get into it because it's definitely something I want to get into later. But there's your math right there, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? There's your math right there. Now, let's talk about something else here. Now, this plane has 2,500 life. It's actually a little bit off, but 2,500, that's fine. Now, let's divide this by 14. 178 damage per second here. Now, obviously, there was a lot of big chunking there with those rockets, all right? That's something you really have to consider there. So, okay, let's say those rockets accounted for at least 100 damage per second right there. That's still 78, which means that rear gun is still half of what your front-firing guns can do, all right? Now, the reason why I think a lot of people might actually subscribe to this theory of thought that these two individuals are trying to propagate here is because, well, they just get really tired of dying to this, all right? They really do. I mean, yeah, front-firing weapons are not the easiest. You got to learn how to aim them right, this, that, and the other. But when you factor in everything else, the fact that, you know, ground attackers aren't very agile. This plane alone can only get up to like 620 at level flight at about 400. And this is with using boost, okay? And it doesn't even have that big of a boost pool like the 1099 on the German side does, all right? It doesn't. It really doesn't have that big of a boost pool. You look at its maneuverability. Well, it's got 19-second 360 on a turn, and it's got 50 seconds on the roll, so it's pretty shitty, all right? It doesn't move overly that well. It can kind of tilt and turn this, that, and the other, but not really, all right? So if you're deciding that you're going to attack this plane, it can't get away from you. It can't use any other defensive measure other than the fact that it has a high health pool and that rear gun. So it kind of seems absurd to me that somebody would think that it's okay to suggest that we remove this, you know, like take away this feature. And it's the auto lock feature that a lot of people, well, at least these two people that I know of, I haven't heard this actually suggested by anybody else. This is like the first two people who've ever suggested it. And I actually kind of respect them somewhat. All right, I do, which is why I've gone through as much effort as I have here. Trust me, most of the time, I would just ignore people I don't know, because random people say random stupid shit, all right? But they've actually taken it upon themselves to, like, make inferences that I think everybody's a liar, which, no, I don't. I've never actually called anybody a liar. They've made inferences that I think this is a personal attack. Seriously, if this is, like, the best you got, like, this is a personal attack? No, I live in reality, sir. Personal attack is when somebody shoots through my window, which happened 3 weeks ago. That was a personal attack. Actually, that was indiscriminate fire because I live in a shitty neighborhood. But you get the point. That's a personal attack. Words on the internet, that don't mean shit. That's just somebody acting like a total fucking tool. Simple as that. Everybody hides behind the anonymity of a fucking monitor here. I at least put myself out front. I put up these videos, all right? And I make myself a target. And that's fine. Everybody sees it. So they've made these statements, and all I've said is, like, everything you're kind of saying here is wrong, and you're acting about it in a very passive-aggressive manner. Stop that. That's wrong. Dissecting their argument, piece by piece, which I've done repeatedly with a bunch of my friends and people I fly with, what we've come to discover is that they're cherry-picking their data without actually understanding what that data means. They don't factor in maneuverability characteristics of different planes. They're making generalized assumptions and statements without looking at the individual interactions. All right? Here's the problem with that. In terms of balance, you can't just make overall statements about this, that, and the other. You actually have to examine each and individual interaction and look at the pluses and minuses and see how it actually performs. And in this case, there are a lot of negatives against the ground attack and a lot of positives for anything else, okay? So when you take into account all those things, it really leads up to the point of, actually, the damage needs to be increased on that rear gun. However, I would never advocate for that because I can see that's a very slippery slope. Another argument could be, well, maybe they should get ammo belts. Again, I would never advocate for that because that's an extremely slippery slope. You want to talk about people crying? This would be fucking horrendously bad. I would never suggest that. Personally, I think it's in a pretty decent position right now. Pretty decent position. It's not too overpowered, but it's not too underpowered. Is it able to take on somebody who's suffered some damage? Yeah. If you're paying attention and you're quick on the draw, yeah, you can do some amazing things and completely decimate somebody. But full health guy comes at you, even when you get him at range, and if he's got rockets or anything like, there's nothing you can do, man. You're in the trap. You're done. That's not skill. Flying literally to the rear of a plane and point blanking rockets is not skill, ladies and gentlemen. All right, it really isn't. So I think it's kind of strange we're advocating for a skill ceiling on one classification of plane, but not other classifications of planes. All right. If anything, like skills like Rocketeer, I don't think should really be in the game. Even though I love the skill and I use it a lot myself, I think it's kind of, you know, like a crutch and holding somebody's hand that doesn't really need to be done. But again, that's my personal opinion. And I've always stated that. These are my personal opinions. Now, I do try to back up these statements with some visual or actual mathematical fact or looking at the stat lines and using that to form an using that to make an informed decision. Sorry, stepping on my tongue there. You know, because you have to have a reliable data set. And unfortunately, when it comes to this game, using what's printed versus what actually is happening in game is a night and day difference. Well, anyway, guys, that's all I got to say in this video. Hopefully this ends that discussion because it's getting really tiresome, and after this, I'm done with it. I don't really want to have anything else to do with it. I've made my point. I understand their position, but their position is not one that I could support because it's not founded in fact. So that's it. That's my whole position there. Anyway, guys, take it easy.